Shalom, and welcome back to Bnei Noach Academy, Thoughts on the Torah. Please remember to hit the like button, to subscribe, and most importantly, to share this insight and inspiration with friends and family. So you look in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 1, beginning with verse 19. Moses reminds them what happened in the past, and that is to remind them all the mistakes they made, all the things that they perhaps misjudged and doubted God, and the transgressions that they have committed in the vein of that. And of course, his purpose is to tell them how to go forward, how the future should look. So what does he tell them? He reminds them, he says in verse 19, how they traveled and they finally reached the Mount of the Amorites. And he tells them, you're in Kadesh Barnea, which really is right there, ready to go into Israel, just about. And what happens, he says, in verse 20, I'm paraphrasing, I told you, look, you've come to this mountain, the Mount of the Amorites, which God gives to you. And now let's focus in on verse 21. In verse 21, he says, see that Hashem, God, your God, gives before you the land, go up and acquire it. Like God has spoken to you, do not fear, do not have any trepidation. Now, then he continues, of course, in verse 22 and on, reminding them of the terrible, terrible misjudgment, the terrible, terrible misdeed of having doubted God and demanded to send those spies, which later turned out to be the greatest mistake of all time. You got stuck here in the desert, and as a result, you did not merit to go into the land. That is, those who passed on in the course of the 40 years, and now it's the next generation that's entering. Now, the question is, why does he have to stick in verse 20, and especially verse 21, as part of the narrative? I mean, it seems that the main point of the narrative is to remind them how they made this mistake, this terrible mistake of demanding that they send the spies, and what resulted from that. Why does he have to remind them and tell them, look what I said to you? I mean, I think it seems to be quite obvious that that was the point. They were about to go into Israel. They're about to conquer the land, and here they unfortunately aborted it before he even had a chance to get off the ground. Well, Moses was telling them something very powerful. Look at the words, go up and acquire it. Go up and take possession of it. Now, he doesn't say go up and fight for it, go up and wage war, go up and conquer it. Just go up and take possession of it. Now, think about it. Typically, when you take possession of something, what does that typically imply? What does that typically mean? That the other party that's giving it to you or is allowing you to take it, to take possession of it, is not protesting, is not putting up a fight. That's why all you have to do is take possession, make an act of acquisition. And Moses tells them precisely, this is not just something I said in the past. I want you to be aware of this. Perhaps this can help you in the future. And the truth is, this is a message for you and me, for all of us. And that is, quote, had you gone then, I'm quoting now the commentary on the Torah, the primary commentary, Rashi, Rabbi Shlomo Yitzchaki, who quotes the Talmud. Again, quote, had you gone then without doubting God's ability to bring you into the land, you wouldn't even have had to fire a shot, so to speak. You wouldn't even have had any need for any weaponry, for any engagement in warfare whatsoever. You would have just gone in there and just taken possession without any opposition. God would have made the enemies just go away on their own. But now that you chose a different course, which you can argue is perhaps the natural course. Well, you don't just go to the unknown. You don't just go blindly. You have to first check it out. You have to first scout. Says Moses, fine. With that, part and parcel of that, it comes the reality that you're now going to have to face, which, as we know, and when you study the other books of the Tanakh, the other books of the Bible, that is the books of the prophets, especially the early prophets, you find that it wasn't easy. They didn't have it easy, and they didn't very conveniently conquer the land. In fact, it became very delayed and, unfortunately, very complicated. And this is all a result of them doubting God's ability. Fast forward to our lives. Yes, whenever we're about to engage in a new endeavor, whether it be business, whether it be social, whether it be family, whatever it is, of course, we need to go about the normal way of doing things. But at the same time, don't rely totally on your own strength, on your own ability. Because if you do so, then God says, okay, let's see what you can do. And then you may have to, unfortunately, and unnecessarily endure so much challenge and pain that you would have to fight through. Better rely on God, like had they done then. And that already eliminates the need for most of the engagement, for most of the nitty-gritty, which leads to pain. So have more faith.